Here.
Mr. Dallas Smith?
Here.
Ms. Holmes?
Here.
David Stickley? Madam Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Baptiste. If you join me in standing for the invocation, Reverend Anderson.
We thank you for this day. Thank you for this great city. Thank you for this great city. Beneficial to the city. Very long time.
Amen. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board, you received a copy of the regular board meeting minutes from the August 6th, 2018. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the August 6th, 2018 meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Presentations, Mr. Baptiste.
Yes, Madam Chairman, Commissioners, first presentation that is Baxter to come by and give an update. Vivian?
Good evening. He's going to pass out copies. I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity to update you on the downtown redevelopment program. It's my understanding that there are several new board members, so I wanted to sort of back up a little bit and give you a little background on what we're doing and why we're doing this project. Legacy was contracted by the EDC in 2016 to redevelop the downtown area. Part of that contract was to build 30 new homes. And part of that is to explain to you why invest in housing. You know, a lot of people say, why is the EDC involved in this? But studies have shown that housing has a great impact on communities. It helps with educational attainment, which means better workers. It helps with civic participation. Homeowners are more attentive to politics and the laws that impact their families. Housing also helps improve health outcomes for families. It's been shown that housing stability reduces stress and also reduces teen pregnancy. And finally, housing has an impact on neighborhood crime. As we know, vacant homes attract criminals, and we have the broken window effect in place. Housing also has economic benefits. Studies have shown that housing creates jobs. For instance, in New York, between 2011 and 2015, affordable housing projects created over 329,000 jobs. In Texas, it has been proven that one job is created by every 2 homes that are sold. Crime areas are also reduced by housing. In this project, Legacy will invest private funds of about $5.1 million for the development of 60 units. As each house is sold, each buyer pays about $2,500 a year in sales tax and ad valorem tax. So over the life of a mortgage, one buyer pays about $75,000 a year in taxes, and over the 30 years. And then if we sell 30 homes, that's $2.2 million. And over 60 homes, we can generate over $4.5 million in taxes. Over the last 6 months, we have added 140 clients to our waiting list. We have 87 clients that receive homebuyer education certification, and we have 10 clients who are in a credit repair program. So those are some of the statistics and the data of our accomplishments. Over the last quarter, we've sold 1 home, and we've also started the construction of 5 additional houses. To make all of this work, we partnered with the EDC and the City of Port Arthur. The city provides us with lots and site clearance. The EDC provides sidewalks and driveways. And also, some of the support comes in the form of down payment assistance as well as the construction subsidy. So a buyer may obtain up to $60,000 in down payment assistance for the purchase of a home. The next slide is just showing you some of the last house that was sold. We build our homes with high-quality materials for sustainability and to improve our neighborhood values. This is just a picture of the interior. It shows you the craftsmanship of the cabinetry here. We use tile in all of our homes. This timeline depicts our ability to reach our goal of 30 homes by April 2019. We're on our way to having all but 15 built by the end of the year, and then the final 15 will be built in between January and April of next year. To help promote our program and to encourage home buyers, we hold events such as we're having our first housing fair this year. It's also a community resource event. So all these things that we do to attract buyers and to get people to notice the program. We're also going to have a block party in October to celebrate the completion of the 5 homes in the 1100 block of 6th Street. I've also provided you with a copy of our courses that we'll be offering over the next 5 months. We have a homebuyer education course each month, encouraging and teaching them about the basics of homeownership, credit, the processes that we'll go through the homeownership role, their expectations. We teach them about property maintenance, how to keep the house once they get into the house, paying their taxes, paying their insurance, making sure that they're good neighbors. So the course is an 8-hour class that they take, and at the end they are certified. This is a requirement of the City of Port Arthur to receive the down payment assistance. That's the end of my update. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes.
In regards to the training that you give on the last page, will you be videoing that? Would that be simulcast? Would that be something that can be distributed through some type of media besides attending in person in case someone can't attend in person?
We haven't done that because it is a certification course and attendance is mandatory. We have some video of some of the portions, but there's also, people can do it online also. There is an online course that's been approved by the City of Port Arthur through eHome. So someone could take it at home online and still achieve the same certification. The only thing that I find is that when people do it at home, I don't know if any of you have ever taken like defensive driving. You sit there all day, take the little course, and you just want to pass the test. And that's sort of, I think, that the impact of a stay-at-home type test. They don't get a chance to talk to a trainer. But we are working on providing different types of training opportunities. We've gone to training to change our course so that it's more interactive and it's more computer-based. So we are making some changes to that.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, Mrs.
How many
Smith?
different designs do you have?
We have about 6 3-bedroom plans, and we have 2 4-bedroom plans at this point.
And the design also includes the outside. So we don't want them all looking the same.
No, it's the design of the floor plans. Each outside is different. We make sure that no one's picking the same color brick. We want them to all look different. So we're not, from the street, you can't tell that they may have the same interior, but from the outside, you would never know that.
Mr. Anderson?
Question is, these 140 clients that's on the waiting list, are those just applicants that are waiting for training, or what is the waiting list consist
They're
of?
going through our program. So when someone comes in, they submit an application. Many of our clients who are not ready immediately who may be going through credit issues, need to save more money. So what happens is everyone on our waiting list has to come in monthly until they are pre-approved for a mortgage. So they continue to come in. We meet with them every month, sometimes several times a month. They come in, they bring updated information, check stubs, bank statements. We keep their file up to date so that when they're ready to go to a bank, that we just hand it to them and they're ready to go. Yes, sir.
Any additional questions, Mr. Marks?
Just one thing, once the homes are completed and occupied, will there be follow-up on the part of the city or Legacy to monitor how the neighborhood is being maintained?
Yes, we are scheduling a post-purchase class. So as we close, we're waiting for the next 5 to close. We'll have a post-purchase class, which is more education on how to maintain the house, having a will, taxes, warranties, things about repairs, lawn maintenance. Also, the city is required to do lien monitoring. So they need to make sure that when they provide the down payment assistance, that that person continues to stay there. And so we will, and we're also developing sort of a homeowners group, a homeowners association. So we'll have some of that, training them on being, and we're going to even have something encouraging them like yard of the month, things like that to make sure that it stays the way, we leave it once we walk away.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Ballou.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. Mr. Bettis.
The next one, KT Maintenance.
Thank you, sir. Uh-huh. If you're ready.
I'm James Bowers, General Manager.
Speak into the mic, please, sir.
Bowers, General Manager of KTM, Kenny Timms, President and owner of KT Maintenance Company. We're located 3 blocks down. Kenny moved in 3 blocks down to 800 Proctor Street in 2003. He started making preparations to purchase that building in 4, and we did so, I believe, in 5, and renovated that property. Since that time, we have been in need of parking. And what we're coming to you guys for is to talk to you about the property directly behind our property on Shreveport in the 800 block of 4th, if you will, or Lakeview. There's a three acre tract back there, and I've got a map of that. And what we would like to do is purchase from you guys the property that's directly behind us in line with the building, and it's about a half an acre. That property, I've got a printout from JCAD and the tax office on the value of that property, and that property has increased in value. In 2002 to 2004, it was valued at $17,600, and then it jumped to, in 2005, to $30,090, and then in 2011 it jumped again to $60,000. And we did our own appraisal. And if you look, there's a property right next to it, and what that $60,000 equivocates 47 cents a foot. And most of the other properties around there are 20 cents a foot. I'm going to go back to the script. And quit ad-libbing. We're asking to purchase 4.94 acres, a portion of that 3-acre tract facing 4th Street directly behind our building. The purpose of the acquisition is parking and access to, because we have trucks come in and out, to our current operations. It's really crucial. We're out of compliance right now in that we do not have parking. We went to SOTEC surveyors and had them draw a plan, and that's on here, and that brings us within compliance. We're asking to purchase the property for $3,677, and that was based on our own appraisal. And what we did is we took properties from two properties from the 1,000 block of Proctor that are on the property comparison table. We took a 920 that used to be the tire shop on Proctor Street property that's now Mardi Gras, and we took 331 Augusta and we mixed it all together and spread it back out and came out with 17 cents a foot. As an offer. We're asking you guys to consider that and take action on that. I've also got a Zillow map included that does a algorithm of property values, and it's in line with what JCAD has with the other properties. If you guys don't agree with our offer, we'd like you to counter if possible. We're asking if any beautification or sidewalks are necessary, the EDC to help us with that. This is win-win. Port Arthur will no longer have to maintain a piece of property owned by taxpayers, and we'll take over that for you. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions? Any questions for KT Maintenance? We appreciate your presentation. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mr. Timms?
Really appreciate you guys and ladies consider our offer. Our goal is to continue to help Port Arthur grow. As the first presenters that came up earlier, we do something similar to that by trying to offer people jobs, training, so that they can purchase a home, such as what they're talking about. Our goal right now has always been to educate, promote, and advocate for them, which is the Port Arthur resident, so that they can have the growth that they're looking for, that we all wish in their best interest, is to be leaders, be able to continue to stay off drugs, to be on the tax roll, so that they can help their family. Those are some of our goals, our mission, and we're just asking you to help us to continue that growth in this area.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Any questions? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Mr. Baptiste? Mic down.
Earlier, the Vivian came up here and she talked about new board members, and I said, yeah, we have a lot of new board members, and a lot of these board members really don't know where we came from. And what I'm going to try to do, especially with our downtown revitalization, is try to walk you guys through where we started and where we at today and where we're trying to go. This thing all started back in 2009, and in 2009, this board commissioned the Economic Development, the International Economic Development Council to do a implementation strategy. How do we revitalize downtown Port Arthur? How do we make something happen down here? Because there was a lot of blight, if you guys could recall, back in 2009. And once they came back with the study, the next thing they did, first thing they said, you need to get some folks that's committed to this and form a board. And the city, in fact, formed a commissioner board. It was called the Downtown's Renaissance Board. And I don't know if you guys remember, but they even had banners down Proctor Street said Downtown's Renaissance Board. But because the funding wasn't there, they didn't last. But we didn't stop there. The next thing the city did was we went into they named a board. What's my next slide? They created what we call a tax increment finance zone that consists of this downtown Renaissance district. Let me go back. This district was from Houston Avenue all the way to Lake Charles, from Lakeshore to 9th Street, right? So from Houston, they're defined from Houston Avenue to Lake Charles, from Lakeshore to 9th Street as the downtown's Renaissance district. And we created a tax increment zone. This board paid for that to happen. I think it cost us about $60,000, right, guys? It cost us $60,000. And what that did was it froze the taxes, property tax, at where it was in 2009. And any increase in property value goes to this board to do economic development in this district. Okay? So the next thing after that, this board, next slide, this board, we went to the voters and we said, well, how can we help? We created a downtown plan, downtown improvement program. And this board set aside $750,000 for 6 years. And business would come in here and we would grant them, just like we do with the business park folks, up to $250,000 to improve the aesthetic of their building. And we started off, because it was so much blight, we spent money, we took down 76 dilapidated structures in this district, nowhere else. We concentrated our money in this district. We took down 76 buildings. We paid for, you guys paid for that, okay? Next thing, we helped Gulf Coast Museum with the East Wing, the Student Success Center at Lamar, we helped with that. The police department, we put about $250,000 in that to renovate it. The baseball at Lamar, we was going to do it all the way downtown, but we started at Lamar at Lake Charles, and we took all the overhead lines and we brought them underground. And we got a list of things, but we spent about $4.5 million trying to improve this part of town. This board spent that, and you could see the return. We got the student dormitory, and the Success Center. About $18 million worth of investment went. That's what the $4.5 million turnaround did to this part of town. What's the next slide? The next thing we did, we got into this building. And I think it was in 2010 we started the process. In 2015, we moved into this building. Estimated cost was about $5.4 million. With the help of Kate and Guy, we've got new market tax credit, $1.8 million from Chase, $1.1 million from Apple Computer, and out of pocket, we came out with $2.5 million. That's how we paid for this building, you know. Next slide. Then the next thing we did, we went across the street and we redid the pavilion. We put almost $400,000, $339,000 in that pavilion, but it was not enough money. So we came back and we put $200,000 more, and that's what you have today. You guys did that. The park across the street from you, People's Park, you guys put $400,000 in that park, you know, and that's why it is what it is today. Next slide. Was that in 13, Kate? Yes. 13, the 83rd legislative session. Wow, we'll never forget it. We wanted to do things. There's certain things that we can do and there's certain things we cannot do. One of the things we wanted to do is provide infrastructure, help the city with some of the infrastructure down here. The other thing we wanted to do was help assist in building the student dormitory at Lamar University. And the other thing we wanted to do was train Port Arthur residents. We had to have, prior to the 83rd legislation, they had to be attached to a job. But anyway, with the help of Kate and Guy, we wrote some legislation, went down there to Austin, and believe me, it was a tough fight. But we went in there with three bills, and we came out with 3 bills passed by both legislatures. And it allowed us to put money into city infrastructure. We put about $2.3 million. It allowed us to put $2 million in the dormitories. Without that $2 million, I can tell you guys, those student houses would not be here today. But that student housing was a $27 million project, and it's all because of you guys and the investment you guys made in there that made this thing happen. Next slide. The next thing, we went to Lamar and we fixed the softball field because it was in bad shape. We put $250,000, made it look like a real softball field. Rose Hill, we put $365,000. Popeye's Park, the pond that you see between the City Hall and the Sub-County Courthouse, we put a filter in there to clean the water and had the Buddhist temple put flowers in there. All you guys paid for all this. That's how involved you got this board have been in downtown revitalization. Next slide. Then we went back to the voters and we asked them to do affordable housing, all for revitalization. We knew that we needed rooftop down here. And, you know, this board approved, gone to the voters. We proposed to give $30,000. We proposed to do 10 homes a year for 3 years with an option to renew for 3 additional years. And we feel, you heard Ms. Vivian say we're going to build 60 homes in the next 4 or 5 years. And those homes are valued at $135,000. You guys make an investment of $1.8 million. In the end, you're going to see about a $9 to $10 million investment downtown because of your $1.8 million investment. It's all about revitalization again. Next slide. You guys know about the grant that we applied for with the EDA. Hopefully this week we would get final approval. But you guys put up $1 million and we got 4.5 $4.7 million. And we're going to have another active building in downtown Port Arthur. Yeah, next slide. And this is what I'm here for today. I got those poster board. That property, 4th Street property, the same property that the prior speaker spoke about. We went to National Development Council, NDC. NDC is an international company that does economic development in blighted community. They do affordable housing, and we asked them to be a developer because of the storm for affordable housing in Port Arthur, and they agreed to it. They are spending money. They're going to put $9 million of their own money. We have a verbal commitment from Rebuild Texas for $2 million. We are going to GLO and asking GLO for $13 million for 100% of the project, $24 million. And we're asking, there's no money you guys are putting in this thing, but we're asking for y'all's support. And I think that I feel very positive about it. And you're going to see this project consists of 118 units. They're condos. Everybody have their own garage. And we think if we accomplish this task, private sector will come. And that's what this is all about, folks, bringing private sector down here. So what we're doing today is asking you guys to support our project. And I think that's my last slide. Huh? Now the last slide I have here, I just wanted to show you guys through all this thing, you guys invest about $15 million, but you got about $90 million return on it. So, about a 18% return on your investment. I would love to put my money in any bank that give me that kind of return. So it's working, folks. It's working. It's working. And I'm going to tell you, right now we're at that threshold where private sector going to come in, and our return going to grow. But what we put in, we don't have to put in anymore, because we have done what we have had to do to get private sector to interject their money. We've made it attractive. So we're asking you guys for support for this project. Questions?
I'd like to make a comment. I was down here in '64 for about 15, 16, 17 years, right over here where our shoe store was in the 500 block here. And, of course, downtown moved away, We didn't move away. Downtown moved away. I never believed that I'd ever see this again, but I'll tell you what, this is really promising. And what's here already is just something that I could never dreamed would ever happen. And the past boards, I can't take credit for it because I wasn't on the board. But you guys in the past boards have done a great job, and I'll tell you what, I think if we could pull this off, wouldn't that be something? It's already looking a whole lot better than it ever looked, for many years, for the last 40, 50 years, So I think we need to keep doing what we're doing because it sure is has a lot of hope and a lot of promise. I think it's beautiful. You're doing a good job, Floyd.
Yeah. Any other questions? Comments? Yes. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Baptiste, can you tell me a little bit about what is our secondary strategic plan toward the corporations that you're trying to pull here with the housing plans? I know that you are forward-thinking there. I know you got something in your head beyond, us building these buildings and trying to bring corporate America here. What's your second iteration plan to target those organizations that you think that may come here to support the bill?
If you look at the community, Port Arthur in general, we have a cash cow, the refiners. You know, if you look at Port Arthur, you probably will not find, we're probably in the top 10 cities in America with the amount of investment that's going to be invested in this community, in one community. So, you know, currently the city, Ron is here, the city's talking with Sempra, the city talking with Golden Pass. We know that Motiva is going to be doing some expansion. We know that Total going to be doing some expansion. We also know that Valero is going to do doing expansion. BASF is doing some expansion. That's just here in Port Arthur. And that's not across the river where they're going to build 4 new LNG. And we are closer to the LNGs in Louisiana than the people from Louisiana. So with that amount of money concentrated in one area, private sector has no other place to go but Port Arthur.
Any
The
additional?
other thing I
Oh,
want to
sorry.
say, excuse me.
No problem.
The other thing I want to say, when the city is negotiating in lieu of tax agreement with all these potential investors, one of the things on the table is downtown redevelopment. We're saying, you know, put your office down here. We want your sales tax to come to Port Arthur. There's a lot of things about bringing business back here. And, you know, I think we have done all that we have to do, not all that we have to do. There's still some infrastructure work we have to get done. But we have made it very attractive for private sector to come now. You know, if you go to Cameron, man, if you need a lawnmower fix, you have to drive to Lake Charles or Port Arthur. You know? And we are closer to Cameron than Lake Charles is to Cameron. And you got 5 LNGs going to be built in Cameron. You know? So, you know, private sector coming, man. That's our secondary plan.
Any additional comments? Mr.
Just a
Mark?
question. When you say 5 LNG, you're talking about 5 units, right?
No, 5
Plants?
5 LNG, 5 different LNGs coming to Cameron. And 2 in Port Arthur. That's not been done. So, got a bright future ahead of us, folks.
Mr. Baptiste, thank you for the presentation and for bringing our new board members to a place where we are. Very good presentation. Okay. Now you asked, we'll move to communications. Oh, I'll do it. The first is the Disaster Humanitarian Services Ride to Recovery. There's a letter? Yes. Okay. There's a letter here, board, that Mr. Baptiste has prepared. Yes. You want to share? Mr. Baptiste, you want to pull your mic down? Thank you.
Sent this letter out about a week ago, right, Johnny? Slow getting some return back, but we did get one back today. Is that right? I did get 2 calls today. The disaster recovery humanitarian service. These guys occupy some space here, and they are looking at the unmet need of a lot of the hurricane victim in Port Arthur. And they are trying they're going to have a ride for recovery. They're trying to raise $100,000 so they could get some items for some of those people that need some items. So I did send out some letters on our letterhead, on your letterhead, soliciting funds for business that I work with. We work with, hope that we get something and be able to help them make a donation to this thing.
Any other questions? Any questions? Mr. Baptiste? Chamber of Commerce Leadership Breakfast.
Yeah, that's your normal monthly leadership breakfast on September the 25th, and normally it's individual tickets if you guys want to attend. I don't know who's the guest speaker. Is that a guest speaker? They have not announced the guest speaker, but those of you who wish to attend, if you give Joni a call, we'll make sure that you have a seat at the facility.
Thank you. Mr. Baptiste has requested, board, that we move agenda item number 9
Right.
to number 1, please.
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chairman, if you can, Mr. James and Ron, they're here, and those, number 9 is a letter of intent for lease space with the city of Port Arthur, and they have a little small presentation to tell you guys what they plan to do with this lease space, if you guys don't mind.
Certainly.
Jay?
Madam Chair, members
Good
of
evening.
the
How are you
board,
today?
thank you for the opportunity. Again, we wanted to try to give you a little bit of an update as to the city's disaster recovery efforts and how it relates to leveraging revitalization of downtown, and then tie in why we felt the space here was important to that effort. So if you'll go to the next slide. Just as a kind of an update before I go into the slide, though, I just want to kind of update you as to and kind of review where we've come from. In August of 2017, the city commissioned a downtown housing plan. That downtown housing plan outlined our actions and activities that would occur in order to leverage the creation of the 60 housing units that you had approved. More importantly, though, it was designed to create a strategy for achieving downtown as a destination place to come to, and creating a real neighborhood again within downtown itself that involved both commercial and housing. Then Harvey hit. Harvey hit in August. We shift gears. We began to, and the city commissioned a disaster recovery plan, but we took a little bit different approach than what had been taken in previous hurricanes, like Hurricane Ike. We decided that while we faced a really catastrophic event where estimated that 80% of our housing stock was impacted by the storm and our commercial developments as well, and we were losing population, we said this is a great opportunity not only to try and address those needs, but to use the funding that's coming in under Harvey as a means of further revitalizing downtown as well. So that became kind of a centerpiece of our strategy, that we weren't going to just address disaster assistance and disaster recovery, but we were really going to look toward resiliency and the future in terms of not only making sure that we were better prepared to weather future storms in our disaster plan, but we were also creating resiliency for the community itself, downtown being sort of a centerpiece of that resiliency. So as part of this process, we have gone through the process of the disaster recovery plan being adopted by the City Council. That plan has also been accepted by the General Land Office, and based on that plan, we've identified the impacts of the storm, the needs of the community that range from housing and unmet needs to infrastructure that needs to be replaced as we replace and repair housing, to mitigation of our existing pump stations, equipment, everything that may have failed or was not currently at a point where it could even handle the impacts of flooding in the storm. That includes drainage and other infrastructure. As part of that process, we knew that we had to change the process in which we were addressing housing delivery services under disaster recovery. So we introduced to the council, and they have approved our ability to create what we're calling a one-stop development center. There are a number of different resources that will be flowing into our community under disaster assistance. They range from funding made available under the Community Development Recovery Act for buyouts of persons whose homes were destroyed due to the hurricane and the flood. They cannot rebuild where they are because they are in the hazard mitigation zones. Therefore, buyout money will be offered to those persons. They'll be able to purchase a home somewhere else. And there's even an incentive housing payment to them that if they will choose to rebuild their new home in Port Arthur, they'll receive an additional $25,000 in addition to their buyout fund just for agreeing to relocate in Port Arthur. We put that provision in and got it approved because we wanted to retain our population and not incur permanent displacement. There'll be other funds that will allow people to rehab their homes. There'll be funding that will allow them to reconstruct their homes. Again, houses that were completely destroyed, it's not cost effective to try and repair them, so you'll tear them down and rebuild on site. And they've also given us the flexibility for those persons to rebuild in other parts of the city. I say all of that to say that what we did in the plan, though, was to tie those benefits that will be coming to our residents to the downtown housing initiative that we have going here. One of the thoughts was, since we already have funding available for the first 60 units, that we would give people an opportunity to use those benefits that they would receive and perhaps choose to replace their home in the downtown housing initiative. That would also allow them additional flexibility for funding. That's important because it allows us, Mr. Baptiste indicated that right now we had about a price point of $125,000 for homes. With persons using their buyout and other funding that they're receiving, it may even offer us an opportunity to even increase the price point in terms of what people can afford within downtown, because they'll have significant equity, if you will, to put into a new home should they purchase it, along with their recovery benefits. So I wanted to kind of, if you look at the screen and you have the background information in your packet, I just wanted to kind of highlight how we plan to go about this process. First of all, the city entered into a memorandum of understanding with Disaster and Humanitarian Services, which is currently located here in your building. Disaster and Humanitarian Services has a contract with FEMA where they're doing preliminary case management. They're actually going out, identifying families who have either been displaced or impacted by the storm, determining what their needs are. They're doing preliminary assessments as to the amount of repair or whether the home was completely destroyed. And as part of our housing development initiative, we provided them with a checklist of information that would be needed in order for them to apply for the various benefit programs that we offer. So if they're going to need to have clear deeds and tax returns and those kind of documents, Disaster and Humanitarian Services helping them to work towards being able to get those documents together. Our proposal is to have space directly adjacent to humanitarian and disaster services so that when they've completed the first stage of case management, the people will be able to walk right across the hall into the development center and to begin to access the program benefits that are being offered under disaster recovery. We'll have a case management system as well. One of the commitments we made is that families won't have to try and figure out which different disaster recovery fund do we qualify for or to understand that particular program and its guidelines. Our case managers will do an application intake, make a determination of their needs, and then present to them the benefits that would meet or are available to meet their needs. And then they'll be able to choose and make their decisions on what alternatives they'll seek. So, for example, If you are a buyout recipient and you're trying to consider buyout and whether or not you're going to build a new home, within the Development Center, would be able to design a program that if you wanted to rebuild on site, or you wanted to rebuild in some other area of the city, or if you wanted to rebuild in downtown, here are the benefits that you're eligible for, and assist you with making an application for those funds. And if you need private mortgage, we'll also assist you with submitting and developing your application for a private mortgage as well. One of the stipulations under disaster recovery this time that's different from Ike is that we will be mandated to carry the person through the development process or the rehabilitation process from a construction and contracting process standpoint. As many of you recall, we had horror stories in the previous hurricanes where persons were given their benefit. A contractor comes out and says, I'll repair your house. I need an initial check of $40,000, and they take it and they walk away. And unfortunately, the families without their benefits. So this time, we will walk them through every aspect of the process. We will contract for the builder of their choice or the rehab contractor of their choice. We will manage through a construction management company the construction process itself so that they get a turnkey product and that they are not losing, if you will, their benefits due to fraudulent type of contracting activities. So next slide. So the Development Center will have a loan intake process. Will resemble much like a mortgage company where there'll be loan processing, there'll be underwriting for the various programs that they're applying for. And once they're approved for their loans, grants, mortgages, then the development manager will take them through the development process. Next slide. One of the other components of this will be that this effort is a combination of space that will be, which will house our initial development team and application intake team. And then back at City Hall, the grant management staff will actually manage the input or reservation of those benefits in the various systems. So whether it's TDHCA, the state, General Land Office, and so forth, each of them have their own individual process, so that they'll be sort of our back office to the process to get those processed. Next slide. One of the features that we will hopefully have as part of this effort in downtown is we have requested Rebuild Texas Foundation to provide funding to create a model home and design and sales center that would be in the downtown housing area. If you've ever gone to a subdivision to purchase a home, you know, you go into the subdivision, they generally have a model home for you to see and feel what that new home looks like. They have a design center that allows you to customize the house that you're planning to purchase based on the amount of funding that you qualify for. So that sales center would be in the downtown housing area, and it would be utilized so that the families who are going through this process won't have to just simply look at the outside of someone else's house that has been built, but they'll have an opportunity to actually see what the construction looks like and what alternatives they have and at what price it will cost. We think that's important because families need to have an opportunity to make this major purchase and make it fit their own lifestyle and the amount of funds that they have available for housing. So I'll close with giving you an idea of what we know of the funding currently that we'll be utilizing through this system. First of all, the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, their disaster recovery program, which has been made available statewide, which means that they have $11 million statewide set aside. It's a reserve system, so Port Arthur can put as many applications into the system until that $11 million goes away. It offers funding for 3 different programs, up to $100,000 for a family that was impacted by the storm, if they're in need of reconstruction, meaning their house has been torn down and rebuilt on site, up to $100,000 if they choose to take the benefit for a house that can't be rebuilt and rebuild it somewhere else. So, for example, they could potentially be living in Vista Village or some other area of the city. If their home were destroyed, they would be able to apply, provided that they are at 80% or below the median income, they would be able to apply to THDC, use that $100,000 benefit to purchase a home in our downtown housing area. There's also an up to $60,000 for a person who wants to rehabilitate the house that was damaged during the storm. In each case, if they qualify, these are programs that will allow them to have self-amortizing loans or grants, if you will, so that as long as they continue to live in the house for a 10-year period, that loan would be actually forgiven over a 10-year period. So that brings additional resources for our ability to revitalize downtown. The General Land Office has allocated $4 million for buyouts. So the buyout program, again, it centers on 5 different target areas that were hardest hit, and you'll have those listed in the information packet that we gave you of the council briefing. It outlines in that particular document 5 different target areas. Ms. Baptiste, they have that?
I can get it to you.
Okay. I'm sorry. We'll get that to you. It outlines there are 5 areas within the city that were hardest impacted. Mr. Burton, can you help me with the names of the 5 target areas?
Elvesta, what was the 5 areas, Ron? Elvesta, Vista Village,
Montrose,
Montrose, Dr. Haney. I can get it to you guys.
We'll get those to you. The point being that
Downtown was one of them also.
the point being that in those 5 areas, they were the hardest hit, and that's the areas where FEMA has projected that we'll have units or pockets within that area which will be subject to the buyout program because they cannot rebuild on those properties. Again, the way that program works is that an appraisal has to be conducted to determine your pre-Harvey fair market value of your home, and the benefit will pay you that fair market value to sell your home to the city. The city will then take that land, clear it, and that land will have to become permanent green space because it cannot be rebuilt upon because of its flood elevation. And then they'll take that benefit and use it to buy a new home. That benefit can be used in conjunction with the other programs, though. So, for example, if you had a buyout benefit because your pre-Harvey fair market value were $150,000, let's say you owe $50,000 on your home, so you've got a net value of $100,000. You could then take that $100,000, which you're getting for the buyout of your existing home, couple that with the $30,000 down payment and closing cost grant in downtown, and if you wanted to buy a new home, you've already got $130,000 worth of equity to put into your new home. And of course, that's impacted by the amount of mortgage that you've got to pay off out of your buyout, of course. So again, an opportunity for people to enter the housing market with equity as opposed to just simply qualifying for a mortgage. The General Land Office, Mr. Baptiste spoke about the funding for the multifamily project. That was a total of $60 million that was set aside. So the multifamily project that we were discussing earlier would be funded through that particular program. In August, Congress appropriated an additional $625 million for the state of Texas for disaster funding. That is going to be our primary direct housing benefit. And again, that $625 million is for state, for the entire state. That's all 45 counties. Port Arthur will get some pro rata share of that fund. But again, we expect that the benefit will mirror the impact that we received. As I indicated earlier, 80% of our housing stock was damaged. So that's where we really will get into the real ability to address the housing needs and the impacts. That's one of the reasons, where we created this new system of how we would carry out those programs. We won't know until probably January of next year as to what our particular share of that fund will be. But at that point, we'll be able to make programmatic decisions and decisions about the amount of funding that you'll receive. And then finally, just so that you know, the final appropriation, which is expected to be by Congress in January of 2019, will be an estimated $4 billion for the state of Texas for disaster recovery. Now, that's the major infrastructure fund. That will cover everything from infrastructure that was damaged in the storm, streets, roads, bridges. That will cover mitigation measures, drainage, pump stations, those things that may have either been inadequate or they may have failed during the storm. And it will also cover what they're calling resiliency. So, for example, if you know as a community that you've got equipment that is old and needs to be replaced so that it will be able to actually weather the next storm, if you will, or in Port Arthur's case where we've got significant drainage issues because it's not just a hurricane, it's whenever we have significant rainfall, it will be an opportunity for us to address those kinds of issues. So as I indicated at the beginning, and I'll close with this, significant amount of funding that will be coming to Port Arthur. So we said the bad news is that we were heavily impacted by this catastrophic event. The good news is that it's probably our best opportunity yet, and probably a one-time opportunity to really use those funds to do more than just sort of patch up what was impacted, but to really create sort of the redevelopment that we want to occur in downtown and other areas of the city, as well as create some resiliency for us as a city and be able to attract the economic development that we really want. So, any questions?
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit more to the fact around what you have on slide 1 when it comes down to disaster humanitarian service and case management? Because I think that some of the issues that I know that I've experienced and other people that I know they experience is that transitional housing between the time their house was being built and their house is being refurbished. Can you talk to a little bit about what your thoughts or your ideology may be around what that transitional housing piece may be until they can move from their old house to their new house?
The benefits that we're receiving currently, those funds are, at this point at least, those funds are primarily addressing the ability to replace the housing that was lost. That $625 million that will hopefully be available starting to the state in January, it is anticipated that that particular funding source will allow us some greater flexibility in terms of relocation, temporary housing, and those sorts of things. It was not included in this initial funding because benefits were made available shortly after the storm through FEMA for temporary housing, to address emergency repairs and those sorts of things. So the thinking on the part of the federal government was that that would address the needs until we could get into the major appropriation for housing, which is expected in January.
Any additional questions, comments? A year ago, we were wondering, what are we going to do? I think we now see at least a plan of what we're going to do as a community. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, James. Madam Chairman, I will tell you guys that James and Ron are hard-working guys, and I think they have put together an excellent plan for this community. And I ask that you go back to number 9 and approve the letter of intent for the city to create that one-stop center where they could have a good flow of through the process going on here.
All right, Mr. Baptiste, let me just say you're hardworking too, and thank you for all you've done. Number 9, to discuss for possible consideration a letter of intent from the City of Port Arthur for lease of space at 501 Proctor Street. May I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 9. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. We'll go back to agenda item number 1. To discuss for possible consideration the acceptance by the City of Port Arthur of the infrastructure of Gabby Eldridge Avenue and Martin Flood Circle in Highway 73 Business Park. Mr. Bennett.
Yes, Madam Chairman and Commissioners, I think this thing go back to 2010, is that right? About 2010?
Yes.
2010, we have the business park on Highway 73, and it's right off of the feeder road. There's a road going into that park, and then there's a cul-de-sac. That's the two roads. One is called Eldridge Drive, and the other one is called Martin Flood. The board back then was naming every street after prior board chairs. Well, this particular street, the city accepted the renaming of the street, but they never accepted the infrastructure. So we are trying to sell this property, but the street still belongs to, Guy, you want to explain that? As lawyers talk now, guys.
When the development was done, the property was platted and the streets were identified. It is, I think it's just a sort of an administrative matter that they were not accepted into the city's street system for maintenance. I think what we have to look at now, but I think this is one of the reasons why Floyd and all of us are interested in working with the city to get these streets dedicated and in the city road system, is that they normally have a requirement for the developer of a new property that is asking for a street or road to be added to the city's road system to obligate to a maintenance for 1 year after the acceptance into the road system. Obviously, the road's been there for a very long time, but it has not been accepted, so we do anticipate that the city may ask the EDC to continue, as others do, to assume a maintenance responsibility for a period of time afterward. But the road has been in for a very long time, and it seems to have done very well, and so we're not particularly concerned about that. But it gives some challenge to Floyd and to Kate, because as we sell the property, we are basically giving them an easement right over the roads because they have not been accepted into the city road system yet. So what we'll do, or what Kate will do, is work with Floyd on the purchase of the property, grant the easement, then as soon as the road is dedicated, it becomes a public right-of-way. So right now, it's still, until it's accepted into the city road system, it's still a private drive. So that is our request, that we do this so we can continue the collaboration with the city. So we do recommend approval.
Yes, sir. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, this is on the council agenda tomorrow for consideration. So we're moving the process along for them to accept the street tomorrow. Now, what will they do? I think they have done some inspection. They should have had the inspection done. They got it on the agenda, so.
In fact, we'll find out tomorrow what the actions of the city.
May I have a motion, please?
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 1. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2, to discuss for possible consideration rescinding a land purchase and loan agreement for Highway 73 Business Park with KLV Ventures.
Madam Chairman and Commissioners, item number 3, we're asking you guys to rescind the agreement that you had with KLV for the purchase of the property on Highway 73 through a loan process. Item number 3 that you're going to take in executive session, there is a request to purchase the property for cash value. So we're asking you guys to rescind number 2, and we're going to deal with the purchase in executive session.
We do recommend approval of item 2 as well. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 2. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda items number 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be reviewed in executive session.
That's correct.
We'll move on to agenda item number 7, to discuss for possible consideration a letter of intent for an economic incentive for infrastructure improvement for 1645 Jefferson Drive, lots 11 and 12.
Yes, Madam Chairman and Commissioners, you guys receive a letter of intent from the Principal George Coffey. Well, the principal is here. Caleb.
And everybody. Hi, my name is George Caleb, and I've been here doing business in Houston and around it for the last 50 years. I have a business in Houston, I have business in Bowman, I have business over here in Jefferson County. So, we have piece of property in the corner of Gulfway and Jefferson. We want to develop it. First, I give chance to HEB to talk to me, and I'm going to give that contract to the lawyer to look at it. I was dealing with him for 3 months. The last minute, they changed them, they back off. Why? I don't know. They say there is more store we have to build before we get to this area. So he got his own property anyway if he come back, across from me. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and build this one. I'm not going to wait for anyone, you know. Otherwise, I was going to do it last year. So we are going to build around 50 different businesses, mix. It's good for the community, good for Port Arthur, and I love that street. I want to clean it up, make it look good, you know. Built all kind of businesses there, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm glad I'm here to meet with you and to see what do you think about that.
Madam Chairman, I think, and we've discussed this briefly with the Executive Director, y'all know generally where the property is located. As you all have in the past, your infrastructure incentives work in either one of 2 manners. Obviously, you have to have 2 or more tenants. You can tell from the proposed site plan that that clearly is not going to be an issue. We spoke to Mr. Baptiste because you all have done these before in effectively 2 different manners. One is where you will have benchmarks or milestones, and you would advance money in arrears, basically to a reimbursement type grant, or like you did along the street where next to Saltgrass, the developer in that case did not want the money in arrears and wanted some money up front. So then in those situations, we have to collateralize it in the form of a letter of credit, because normally these, the way that you all have worked with the developers in the past on the ones that aren't on a reimbursement basis and when there's a letter of credit, there's also points at which the letter of credit will basically, in our terms, dissipate. So as a certain percentage of the work is completed, that percentage of the letter of credit is also released. So we did that, as y'all know, with, I'm sorry, I can't remember Mr. Grone's company there with Saltgrass, but then on Party City and the group at the mall, they wanted just the money in arrears as each CO for a certain amount of building. So we can, with the pleasure of the board, if you all want to proceed with the letter of intent,
that's for this incentive, we can work with the pleasure of the board, of course, towards whatever methodology works best for the EDC and for the developer here. And they're talking basically, as I think, is water, sewer, drainage, and parking or other improvements. Is that the nature of them?
Good evening. How y'all
Good
doing
evening. How are
tonight?
you, Dr. Turner?
Well, I just want to take a second and tell you how excited I am to be part of, I'm calling it a movement going on in Port Arthur today on many levels. Many thought that this storm's going to take us down, and the effect of that storm has been nothing but positive on all levels. And I think we're in a position where people like Mr. Khalaf from Houston is realizing how important it is to invest in Port Arthur. All it took is about an hour of conversation with him, and he decided to move forward with that shopping center. We're already designing a second one that's going to go next to it. As soon as this building go up, the next one is going to be submitted permitting for. So, and the funding we're asking for in this project is mainly for paving, infrastructure, water, wastewater, storm, water taps, sewer taps, and a fire hydrant. If you all have any questions on that, I'll be more than happy to expand on them.
Madam Chairman and Commissioner, I think like the attorney said, we can get with the principal and see it's an eligible project, see how we're going to work the payoff on this thing, and then we'll come back to you guys.
We're asking to approve you
Yes,
all
ma'am.
moving forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 7. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 8, to discuss for possible consideration a letter of intent in Phase 1 application for an economic incentive for Ramtex, from Ramtex, I'm sorry.
Yes, Madam Chairman, again, we received a letter from Ramtex for an economic incentive grant. Those guys, I spoke to them, they purchased Tech that was on 7th Street, and they expanded their services, and now they're trying to purchase and retrofit a building that's currently vacant in the business park. Based upon, to be honest with you, I have not done a complete study, but based upon the NAISC code.
The ISC code, they appear to be within a manufacturing type usage based on their application.
Right. And so I ask you guys, let us move forward and do our investigation. You know, there's a lot of documents that we have to collect. But based upon the NAISC code, it seemed like an eligible project.
This is that property immediately off the highway where the rental building business was for a period of time.
Yeah. RCS or
No, not RPS, but the RRP. It's the first entrance in that first property on your left, on your right when you come into the business park. It was built by a group and then a ground leased to that tenant. They had a change in their business, and so as I understand it, the request would be. I don't think we ever did an incentive for that business. We just sold that property, but they do want to upgrade some facilities in there, and they would be willing to offset that with job creation and perhaps capital investment. I'll let Mr. Batisse's computer do the magic formula on that.
We're asking you guys to, if you wish, for us to move forward with the application and see what it turns out to be.
Okay.
Not a commitment for an amount
Okay,
yet.
it's been moved. It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 8. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 10, to discuss for possible consideration a request for qualifications for architectural services for the renovation of the Port Arthur News Building.
So I'll get that to the lawyer.
The part of what we'll be doing, and this is the next two items, is that every bit of the procurements that we will be doing for the EDA grant effectively have to follow procurements that would be required for any governmental entity, even though we're a public nonprofit EDC that in normal circumstances could, go out and acquire you're basically under what is referred to as Code of Federal Regulation Part 200 for these, or a different part. For these funds, they're EDA. In other words, we must comply with the EDA's requirements for any procurement, and so we don't ever consider what we do shortcutting, but we will be following exact procurement methodologies such as the City of Port Arthur would normally do. I am happy to say that all we really need to do, and I think Mr. Baptiste has got this for both of these two agenda items, is get the really scope of services, because again, thanks to our friend Hurricane Tropical Storm Harvey, Kate is becoming a subject matter expert at writing requests for proposals for professional services. So we feel like we have what is a good template for a similar type of procurement. This is not a disaster procurement. This is EDA procurement, but is effectively the same process. And again, for the first item, just for the recollection of the board members and those that are more new to the board, professional services like architects or engineers is a two-step process. First of all, you qualify the most qualified firm. You do not base the first round on fee. You base it on qualification. And then the second part is to negotiate a fee contract with the most qualified firm. The second one, that is why that's a request for qualification. The next one we'll discuss is an RFP, which is just a little different format. But we do recommend your approval to allow Mr. Batiste and Kate to draft an RFQ for these architectural services.
And Commissioner, Madam Chairman, Commissioner, the reason why we're coming to you today, I did receive a call and I spoke to a guy from EDA. They have done their due diligence with our file. They have turned our files over to the Fed, and I am being told 8 to 10 days. Fed should give us stamp it. So before you guys come back, I don't want to have to wait for you guys to come back to go out for proposal. Hopefully we'll get final approval this week.
Wonderful. Motion for agenda item number 10, please.
So moved.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 10. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 11, to discuss for possible consideration a request for proposal for a project management consultant service for the removal of asbestos-lead mold.
Same thing.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 11. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 12, to discuss for possible consideration allocating $67,500 of job training funds for 5 Port Arthur High School graduates to attend a 2-year training program at Lamar State College. Crystal?
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
We have been discussing the opportunity of maybe providing full tuition assistance for certain fields of study for students that are wanting to go to Lamar State College. Now, it would be for their actual associate's degree rather than a certificate like what we've been funding as such as the CDL program. So we would like to possibly get into helping those students get a full ride through Lamar State College. We haven't determined yet what fields of study, but we will put that in policies and procedures and bring it back to you once we have got all of those details together.
Would this be for those students who have chosen another path from high school other than the high school program that that the school currently has?
It could be, but a lot of them do fall in line with what the school has to offer. We have talked about maybe the welding instrumentation program. You know, the high school does have something similar to that as well that kind of guides them into that direction. But there are other fields of study that may not be offered through the high schools. And we are also, just to let you know, we're looking at all of the schools in the Port Arthur, Sabine Pass, Memorial, the charter schools. I don't think we are considering
Sabine Pass, Bob Hope.
Sabine Pass, Bob Hope, and Toccoa Academy. So that we will put policies in place so that we can have qualifications for those students whenever they apply, and we can go through them.
This would ultimately be, as we've done before with Dr. Stretcher and so forth, a job training agreement with the funding going to the college for the selected students.
And I think, and she may have said it, we're trying to focus on those kids. Lamar has a air conditioning refrigeration program. They have an instrumentation program. They have a process operation program. They have a drafting program. They have a network system program over it. And we feel that these young kids coming out of school could get a 2-year degree, and then coming out of school, get that 2-year degree, they can go in the work world and making $40,000, $50,000 with that 2 years. And then the other thing is is going to keep that kid here in Port Arthur. That's another thing we have to work. Like Crystal said, we're playing with policies and procedures right now. So the other thing we want to do is look at a couple of 2 or 3 board members being on the selection committee on how to select this scholarship. We're looking at March, April, having all requests, all those who's seeking that scholarship to come to bring the documents that we're going to require to us, and you guys select. I think Crystal think it's best that we make the selection instead of the school system, because she think that the board's going to make a better choice than just picking somebody you know or somebody you like. You know, so there's a lot of thoughts going on into this. If you guys have any ideas, give Crystal thoughts, because we if y'all pass this tonight, we're going to start working on it.
It's just for 5 students?
Yes.
And how many high schools we have in Sabine?
We've got
Memorial?
Sabine, Memorial,
How many charter
Bob
schools?
Hope, Toccoa Academy, so that would be a total of 4.
Commissioner Smith, the other thing, you know, we have not abandoned our summer intern program. You know, next year when we came to you guys last board meeting, that next year we want to be much more prepared than we were this year and put 20 kids in our summer intern program where we pay the kids salary for 8 weeks, and hopefully that business that we put them into during the intern period, they will pick them up permanently. And these are all seniors also. It's just not a scholarship. Some of them are going to be going to school, some are going to be on the job. You know, we're just looking at ways to keep those young folks here and making sure they're earning some money.
I like the fact that we are investing or planning to invest in our youth so that they can possibly stay in Port Arthur. But I also think that we may need to consider some extra measures as far as preparation to make sure that they are not just trained, but as well educated, you know, to be able to handle some of the things that they're going to face on the job site. I don't know if that's something that we could put into place, because giving a full ride to Lamar State College, the kids will still have some other things available to them. So it benefits them greatly. But we need to make sure that we as the city, get some type of benefit out of it as well. So I don't know what we can put in place, but maybe we can consider some measures to help increase the success rate and also the job placement side of it.
And Commissioners, as I said earlier, if, we're introducing this to you guys now, if y'all come up with anything, give Crystal a call, because we got to put procedures together. And we certainly appreciate your input into this thing.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 12. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. I think Reverend Anderson would be very good in helping to create those guidelines.
Madam Chairman, thank you for volunteering, Reverend Anderson.
You. And of course, anyone else who wants to join them, but I think he would be very good in doing that. We'll move on to the reports, marketing and business recruitment report. Renata?
Good evening.
Good evening.
If you guys look in front of you, you see our, you will see our 2018 newsletter. These actually went out last month. It is a vital, and it has been a vital component for economic development for people that are actually in our city. It keeps them up to date on what the Economic Development Corporation is doing. And if you guys look inside the actual newsletter, it's a lot of great information, a lot of vital information, and it really shows what we're doing. It shows where we want to go, and it also depicts and talks a little bit about the future. Also, I actually spoke with a guy by the name of Guy on last week, and Mr. Baptiste and I actually have an appointment scheduled with him on Wednesday, and it's with MultiView. We utilized MultiView a couple of years ago, and basically what it does is it gives us analytical data, it shows us hits and just people that are actually coming to our website, companies that are looking, how long they're staying on our website. If we want to follow up with them, we can. We can go into Duns and Bradstreet and pull a Hoover's report where we're able to see the company, the family tree, the whole 9 yards. But what they've done is they've revamped the program. So it kind of targets and it goes towards Economic Development Corporation. So looking forward to that call on Wednesday. I also had a call with Chimera Analytics. They have updated information on their site, which shows Q2, which is Q2 analytics. And if you guys want to, I have an older version on our website right now, but I'm going to put an updated version that has all of the current analytics. And I also need a picture of our new board member so that I can put on our website. And that concludes my report, if you guys don't have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Renata. Operational report. Crystal?
Our report today is more so training rather than operational. I just wanted to give you all an update as to what's going on with the discussions with industry and training. I did have a chance to meet with Valero and their HR representative last week, and they are very eager to move forward with us. Right now, our plans are to hopefully gather a few of their contractors and have a sit down and discuss with them what is the best way for us to approach training assistance with those contractors so that we can later on approach the rest of the contractors in this area and hopefully get together with the school district, ABC Training, Lamar State College, however we need to get people trained to start filling those jobs in the plants and with those contractors in other areas as well. So that's moving along. We're very excited that Valero is now on board with us as well. So hopefully next meeting I'll be able to give you an update as to where we are with that as well. Life skills, I know last week we talked a little bit about last month, incorporating life skills into all of our training programs. We have talked more about that. I believe Mr. Anderson walked in on one of our discussions a couple of weeks ago, and we chipped at his brain a little bit about it as well. But we are trying to nail those details down, as well as how we're going to incorporate life skills. We've talked to our former life skills training provider to sit down and figure out what is the best way to incorporate it, whether it needs to be a week-long workshop, a 1 to 2 day workshop, and what are the highlighted areas we need to really pinpoint and focus on. So we are moving forward with that as well. Any questions as to training or any of the contracts we have right now?
My question is not about the training or the contracts, but piggybacking to the conversation that Mr. Baptiste was talking about with all these LNG people coming here, things of that nature, and all these plants being built, I'm quite sure they're going to have a manning issue trying to find talent to go into these plants. How are we jumping ahead of their needs to understand what their needs may be so we can incorporate them in the plan that you're trying to execute right now for the training that they're going to need for those manning positions that they're going to need to fill? Have you thought that far?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, Golden Pass LNG has really started a really good process. They've actually started ahead of time, and they're out there putting classes together, doing things in the community to try to get people prepared for these jobs. And that is our goal as well with the rest of the LNG plants, as well as the industry that's already existing here, to try to get them on board so we can. Valero is in the early stages working with us, so that they're kind of taking the lead right now, and we are very appreciative of that, because it's one thing when we sit down and discuss what we think is good for the contractors or the plants, but it's good to hear from them to tell us what's going to work for you, the plants as well as your contractors that's going to come in and fill those jobs. So we are trying to start that communication with all of those LNGs and plants.
Let me say this, Commissioner. We have tried to take a holistic approach to this thing, and I think it was too big for us to swallow. I think the approach we're taking now with Valero have 5 subcontractors that we could work with. When I say we, this is EDC. And I think if we could perfect what we're trying to get done, it's going to be a better tool for us to give to the rest of these folks. So, one thing we did learn that of all the refineries, there's only Valero, Total, and Flint Hill that have HRs in this community. The rest of these plants, they don't know the applicants. It's all computerized, So one of the things we're very receptive to what Valero is doing, and I was happy to hear the plant manager and the HR director from Valero. They understand the good old boy system, and they understand it's going to be tough to break. But we're trying to put things in place right now, and like Crystal said, sitting down with these contractors and making these subcontractors aware that, we need to get a better workforce. And how we get a better workforce is training these local folks. And I think if we do a good job there, it's going to go on to the next plant. Because it's just so much work out here, man. It's just not enough workers around here. It's not enough workers. So, we've been working at this for 3 years, Ms. O. It takes so long. It's a culture we're dealing with, and it's tough to change a culture, man.
Any other questions for Crystal? Thanks, Crystal. Rachel, financial report.
Good afternoon, Board.
Afternoon.
The report today, the numbers from the report today is going to be effective as of August the 31st, 2018. The total expenditures as of August the 31st is $2,338,000. So far, we have sales tax also of $3,616,189. That's just telling you where we are with our expenditures and where we are as far collected sales tax. If you look at the the statement of revenue expenditures and change in fund balance, I'm going to go to that report. Effective as of August the 31st, we have collected $3,616,189 in sales tax. Our interest from revenue is $98,007. Our loan repayment is $21,739. Our rental income is $53,543. Business park, land, and miscellaneous have not changed since the previous month, leaving us a total revenue of $3,832,405. Our current economic development expenditures is $2,200,338,000, leaving us an excess of revenue of $1,632,067. Our total other sources and uses of funds at this time is $90,405. That's the last month, which will be the month of September, that we'll be funding the transfer for the bond payment. Our net changes in fund balance is $1,541,662. Fund balance at the beginning of the year, $7,647,067, and that leaves us a fund balance at the end of the year of $9,188,729. Our current year remaining budget is $3,881,475. Our projected end of the year budget is $5,307,254, with a projected additional sales tax revenue of $326,396. Currently, we're calculating the average for the sales tax and estimating that we will receive an additional $326,396 by the end of the fiscal year, possibly leaving us with an increase in our projection of $700,000. Our revenue is possible, if all our projections come through, that we can possibly have $428,848 in revenue that was not projected. Any questions? Thank you. Have a nice evening, Board.
Thank you. Mr. Baptiste?
I don't have, I'm going to follow up on some of that stuff, Rachel. This is our last month of our fiscal year. Next month is September. We in our fiscal year, and then we start a new fiscal year. You guys have approved a budget for next fiscal year. A lot of the stuff, money that Rachel talked about, if you look at, I'm looking at development, you still got $1 million in there. All that's going to go back into your fund balance. Now, we budget $2.5 million for next year. So this money is just going to go into your fund balance. I could tell you guys, you're not going to spend $900,000 in this 4B, that money gone. I would project that about $1.4, $1.5 million you will not spend this year, and it will go into your fund balance. So that's additional money. Rachel projection, what, 5, 6? So I'm projecting about $7 million, because it's money you have budget now you're not going to spend. Everybody understand what I'm saying? I have, the only other thing, as I said to you guys earlier, I spoke to EDA. Everything was approved at the state level. It's down with the federal level. Hopefully we hear something from the Fed this week. I think next Monday, is that right, Crystal? We have another application in with GLO for a small business assistant. Hopefully, we'll hear something from GLO next Monday about the other application that we have in. I think it's next Monday. That's all I have.
Thank you. At this time, the board will recess and move to executive session pursuant to the following sections of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Section 551.071, 072, 074, and 087. This time, we'll recess to executive session.
John Sharfus. Here. Christopher Smith. Here. Kenneth Marks.
Here.
Dallas Smith.
Here.
Ingrid Holmes.
Here.
David Stickley. Madam Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, to purchase for possible consideration a purchase agreement and easement for road access with KLV Ventures for land at Highway 73 Business Park. We have a
It's a purchase of approximately 2.8 acres, and the purchase price is $175,000, and we recommend approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 3. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 4, to discuss for possible consideration entering into a purchase agreement with Walden Road Properties, LLC for 6 acres of land at Spur 93 Business Park.
Thank you as well, Madam Chairman. This will be part of working with that group and the next agenda item with industrial scaffolding. But we do recommend the approval of the sale of the 6 acres in the business park at your regular price, subject to the incentive with Walden Road Properties.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 4. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 5, to discuss for possible consideration an economic incentive grant with industrial scaffolding.
Again, Madam Chairman, this is an incentive that will be earned in your performance milestones by the creation of ultimately, I think, about 27 jobs for Port Arthur residents by industrial scaffolding, to begin with their receipt of a building permit for the property that is being purchased by Walden Road Properties, and the incentive will be $300,000, and we do recommend approval as well.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 5. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 6, to discuss for possible consideration a purchase agreement with Standard Alloy for 22 acres of land in Spur 93 Business Park.
This as well will be a purchase of the largest tract that the EDC has sold in the business park to Standard Alloys for them to consolidate some business operations. This is a property that we took a little time because we had to make sure there were no title impediments. That's been cleared, so it looks forward. We move forward. Kate and Floyd will move forward with the purchase contract. They're going to acquire the land outright and then request, which they have and you have previously approved, an incentive for some of their retention of business retention in the city, and increase in their capital investment, which will result in a separate incentive agreement. But for now, we do recommend the approval of the sale of 22 acres to Standard Alloy, and that will be at the customary price as well for the acreage in the business park.
So move.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda item number 6. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. There being no further business, I have a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's okay. It's been moved and second to adjourn the meeting. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right. Out of here.